Hello, we have games. You've probably never seen her before unless you were at Origins, in which case she probably looks more familiar to you than I do. This is my partner. She does all my graphics work and helps me with editing.
Hi, I'm Abbee.
We got back from Origins last weekend, and we have a lot of games. Some of which we were given by designers and publishers for review purposes, and others that we bought. And this is our Origins haul video. We're going to show off the games and talk about them, and as we do, I'm going to take them off the stacks and put them back on the shelf. You want to go first? You want to pick something?
I'll probably pick the biggest thing, so it's like the easiest to put at the bottom of the shelf.
Okay.
So one of the fun non-game items that we got, but game helpers, is this book of maps by Yarrow Studios. They are dry erase, wet erase maps you can use for anything that uses a grid. So they have a lot of really cool, reusable maps.
Yeah, 30 grid-based maps. You could use them for D&D, Pathfinder.
Lots of glare on them. They're 22 to 17 inch maps, so they're quite big. Plenty to just use as the main board. So if you just want like a ocean like that one, or a nice market, you don't have to actually draw out the full map. You can just use one of these. And like we said, they're wet and dry erase. So
Yeah, a lot of the things in the book are kind of, I wouldn't say generic, but commonly used items or maps.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's really big.
you know, I DM a Pathfinder game for our group, and I could see myself just sitting this book down and using, like, especially for like arenas. There's an ocean with a boat, there's some rooftops, some ice.
A lot of things that are going to get more than one use, even though there are a couple lake towns that you might not visit as often, but there's a lot of nature ones too. Like there's a waterfall one, I think, in there, and a desert style. Some more things that you'll see a little bit more often.
A nice tavern complete with bedrooms. And you can draw on them because they are dry and wet erase. So if you need to add battle effects or as things change in battle.
Yep. So this is one of the favorite things that I got from the haul. I was pretty excited about because it makes life as a DM a little bit easier.
Not
Or
that you
just
would
player.
know.
I'm trying to get into it.
One of the stands we were at up there, actually, like, when we stopped at it, they're like, what's your favorite class to play in D&D? And, like, she answered, I don't remember what it was, but you
I didn't
answered.
answer.
Or, yeah, and I'm just staring at the wall. I'm like, Dungeon Master, because that's all I've ever got to do.
Yeah, I can't decide because I tend to end up being whatever the team needs. I pick last. Most often I've been a druid, but I've also lost my druid powers because I sucked at being a druid.
That's true.
I can't really say druid's my favorite.
Well, you said to start with the bigger stuff, but I kind of stacked stuff on the bigger stuff.
So if you want to start with something else, just grab one that you have.
Okay. Oop. This is Wild One, and this is by Rad Books and Games. And this is a kind of simple card game. And I should have put the cards up top. There we go. And it's a numbers game, and there's a lot of memory involved in it. Like, you're trying to have it's the lowest count, right?
It is the lowest number closest to 1, but without going under 1. So you can't be negative, but you're trying to get to the closest to the single 1 digit.
And the interesting thing about it is you're not allowed to just count your cards during the game unless you have a card or power that lets you do it. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to remember what you have, And some cards in the game, and of course I can't find any right off the bat, let you mess with the other player's stacks. So they're trying to remember what they have while they're playing cards, and you can take things out and throw them off. And this is a really simple game. It was very cheap.
Inexpensive.
Yes, it was very inexpensive, and I don't know if it was a convention special. I haven't looked, but I think it was only $10 at Origins.
Yeah, it was actually $7.50, and they were selling them 2 for $10 if you wanted to get 2 sets, so you could gift one. It's a really on the more simple side of the game, but like he said, there's that constant having to keep track of what your number is at any given time. That adds a special layer of complication to it, a little bit more than a regular.
Yeah, just the simple mechanic of adding that memory component makes it a lot more strategical and deeper than it would otherwise be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Wild One.
So these two are adventures for 5th edition. So they're actually comic books that have monster stats and just a whole almost adventure that takes place in this comic book style. So it's got artwork like a normal comic book telling you the story parts at the beginning, and then like I said, there's actual monster blocks for fighting a monster. If you have a DM that doesn't have time to start planning, these are great for that kind of thing. They're also great for introducing things other than fantasy, because this one is Tunnel of Terror, more of that 90s horror story. This one's World War II, and then they have a couple science fiction ones that are also in production. So this is Limitless Adventures, their comic book sets.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is taking Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and then you can play with an entirely different theme outside of fantasy. Like, I doubt the camera's going to pick this up, but there is stat blocks for different tanks, American tanks, British tanks, weaponry that's relative to the era, like submachine guns and stuff like that. And that one's horror-based, and I think they even had superhero ones up there at the stand.
There's actually characters in here for you to pick to play. So on this one, you can choose to play a cheerleader, the cool kid, guy/girl next door, or the tough kid. All those tropes from, a 90s horror movie. So they have characters you can play. Yes, you kind of need the rule books for 5th edition, but other than that, this is all you need. You need the general rules for 5th edition, but you don't need a player monsters guide. What is it for 5th edition?
Monster Manual.
Monster Manual, or the player's guide. As much as you need this book, you can play without a lot of the basic stuff. So it's pretty cool. Something again for those people who DM doesn't have time, or you want to try something different from normal, or if you want to DM for the first time.
And this one we haven't actually opened up yet, but we demoed it at Origins with one of the designers. And this is by, where is it? Rock Manor Games. And this is a 2-player head-to-head kind of asymmetric card game. Everything that you need to play comes in that box. And it is a courtroom battle, which sounds like the least interesting possible setting for a card game ever. And that's what I thought when we walked over there. I only stopped to play it because she wanted to check it out, and I ended up loving it. It's really strategical. You're playing, one side is the defendant and the other is the prosecution. And in
the defense lawyer. You're not the defendant themselves.
Right. And the particular scenario that we played, we were trying to win over the jurors, and we were doing that with a bunch of different cards and abilities, and there was a whole lot of back and forth of us countering what the other person was doing, and we were kind of in a hurry that day. We had a lot of ground to cover at Origins, and we ended up accidentally sinking in an hour just sitting there demoing it. We actually had to stop playing and get up mid-game, thank the designer for the demo, and we picked up a copy, and move on because we just lost track of time playing it.
Yeah, it says an hour for the average playtime, but like he said, while we were learning it, obviously, in the demo, we still easily spent an hour and was not even halfway through a single game because, you know, we were taking our time, and it is, the more you play, I'm sure the faster you'll get, but there's a lot of deliberation when you're trying to figure out what's the best combo to win over each witness and the jury members toward your side or their side. So I think it's fun too because you don't really know who's actually right or wrong.
Yeah,
it's really open-ended. It's more on who do you convince. So
yeah, the theme isn't really that there is a guilty party or not. That's left up in the air, and it's just playing like the defense and the prosecutor
trying to convince everyone your side is right and the other side is wrong, but that doesn't actually mean that that's true. So it's very interesting and tactical. There are expansions for us, but they were actually sold out before we were able to get this on Saturday. This is, again, by Samuel W. Bailey and Mike Nade, and Rock Manor, Lawyer Up. Definitely something we're pretty excited
Yeah, we've been excited about opening that up. We've just been busy since we got back.
The next one.
Actually, why don't you grab the dice trays and show them off while I grab the cards, because I forgot to grab them before I started recording.
What cards? Oh, so we got a couple of dice trays from, as well. I thought that this one was dinosaurs. I was super excited. Then I realized they're cats, not dinosaurs. So I'm disappointed a little bit.
Oops.
But they're still pretty cute.
So how we got these was kind of interesting. We were getting a demo for chai and chai tea for two, and I hadn't realized that the people demoing it were actually helping out chai, or the company that had chai, and I don't know that off the top of my head. They had press badges, and that did not click. We was talking to them, and they when they found out that I also was there as press and I review games, handed us their cards, and I was very taken off guard and confused for a second. But it was actually other board game content creators. And I just want to mention them. I'll leave links to some of their stuff down in the description below, because since I've gotten home, I've checked them out, and they do cool stuff. There is Jazz Cruz of the Lobby of Hobbies. You can find them on Twitter at Lobby of Hobbies, and they have a YouTube, and I'll leave a link to that down in the description. And then there is David Chapman of the Rat Hole, which he has a review website, and you can also find him on Twitter at therathole.ca, and I'll leave links for that too.
This is the actual card for the chai tea.
Oh. Oh, duh. Steeped Games makes chai and chai for two.
We do appreciate it. And then the other creator was Dan Casimir. So he does his own tabletopify.com website, and he's the publisher for the chai tea game.
I knew that name too, I just couldn't remember it right then. Steeped Games.
Get it? It's chai tea. Steeped. Sorry, I love puns.
Let's see. Okay, let's do this one next because I can sit it right on top of the book. This is a popular game right now, and that is an ungodly amount of glare.
I got it.
Ruins of Arnak by Czech Games Edition. And this one was one that I knew I wanted before I ever got there, because I had been playing it on Board Game Arena. And it is a combination of a worker placement game and a deck builder. But the deck building is kind of light, but it really, really matters what cards you're actually taking, because you draw 5 cards every turn, and the cards that you draft, that you buy, go on top of your deck. So you know you're getting them next turn. So you have to plan several rounds ahead, and you're trying to end up with the most points at the end of the game, and there's all kinds of ways that you can go about that, whether it's defeating guardians that are guarding the ruins, going up the research track, the items themselves, the artifacts and items give you victory points, and it's a lot of fun. I haven't actually opened this one up yet. I'm excited to play with all the little pieces because I really, really enjoyed it on BGA.
So it is a 1 to 4 player game. It's interesting in the fact that there's a lot of things that reward you for being the first person to do them, not just doing them in general. You also want to beat your competitors, even though it's not an actual like straight up competitive game where you're fighting against other people. You are jockeying for different positions, and like I said, trying to be the first one to explore something, which makes sense in the theme that you guys are explorers of this lost island, and you want to be the first one to explore anything because the first one there gets all the glory. So definitely an interesting game by Min and Elwin.
Mm-hmm.
So lots
and there is a expansion that they are releasing at Essen that I'm really excited about, that's going to bring asymmetric player powers into it, which is one of my favorite board game things.
So next we can talk about this fun little game called Knights of the Hound Table. So if you're like me and you love puns of all kinds,
Open that up a little bit.
This game is full of puns. Every single card
I don't know what I expected.
is a different pun or a play on words of some sort. It is a dueling game where you are building your deck and trying to, I don't know how to say, like you're fighting against an opponent.
I was gonna try to
building.
show some of the, because everything in here is really cute, but it's also, if you don't like puns, you're going to have a very bad time.
Yeah.
Like we got Frank the Wiener Dog. His name is Frank, and I don't know why I did that because I'll probably edit that into the video anyway.
Yeah.
But, anyway, it's not quite a deck building game in the normal sense. At the start of the game, you take turns drafting cards to form your deck, and then you fight with that deck. And the cool thing about this is that each card has multiple uses. Mm-hmm. You play in each phase. You play. You pick three cards to play to attack, defend, or use the ability on the card. So every card can be used for multiple things, and that's really cool. And we have the expansion, which is, I think it's called Sails and Tails.
Yep, and it adds corgis and huskies to the mix because why don't we want corgis and huskies? There's actually additional deck building too once you get into the combat phase, because as you fight your opponent and you win, you can actually, you get dog treats that you can spend to get hero puppies that have even more special abilities and are stronger. And then there's a variant that if you get 5 hero dogs, you win, I believe, right?
I don't think it was that. I think, but hero ones can make normal dogs faint when they attack them, and if too many of your dogs faint, you lose.
Yeah, because they were just blinded by the shininess of the heroes. So we got a fun holographic set for being at Origins, but it was super cute, fun little game to play competitively, easy setup, and again, full of fun.
This is another pretty popular game right now. This is by Smirk and Dagger, or Smirk and Laughter. And every time we went to visit their stand, they had a crowd. It took us 5 or 6 tries to find a moment to actually get in and talk to them. And we met the owner, Kurt, and he is extremely nice. And we ended up, after talking to him and learning about the game, we had to walk away with it. And this is a kind of cooperative horror game where you're prisoners in this dark, ever-changing cave, and you have candles to light your way, and anything that the light doesn't touch changes if you go through it again. So you're trying to find these keys to unlock the gate to escape, and every time you walk away from a tile, it's gone. Next, if you go back that way, it's something different, and you kind of have to work together to get the keys, arrive at the gate at the same time in order to win.
It has to be the same gate too, so it's definitely an interesting feature as you're trying to plan your really precise way through this maze that you can't see, because the whole thing is that you're in the dark. On top of that, there are monsters that will attack you, so you never know when you go through the next hallway, are you going to run into a monster that'll change everything, or is the path up ahead straight, or is it curved going the wrong way when I'm trying to get to my friend who might be standing on a gate waiting for me to get there. You all have to have keys individually.
Yeah, every player has to have a key.
To the same exact gate, but there's a limited number of both. So if you see one, you have to be careful not to lose it. But you can't just stay still, because as you stay still, your candle still continues to burn, meaning that eventually, if you just stayed in the same place, the game would end. So it's definitely an interesting game of how fast do you move, how slow do you move, how careful are you.
And we've played this a little bit since we brought it home. And there's it comes with extra components to play harder variants of the game. And there's a variant that I highly recommend when you're playing co-op called Eerie Silence, where you only talk if you are adjacent to another player's pawn. And that adds a whole lot to the game and really kind of does away with the potential quarterbacking that could happen in a game like this if you can't talk until you're right side by side.
Yeah, it kills me. It really kills me, because I am officially a quarterback who can't shut up.
So. A little bit louder. I don't know if the mic will hear you.
You're a dick. But yes, it's definitely hard when you play in the can't speak mode, especially for us people who tend to help other players along when we're playing cooperative games. But I really do like it.
And this is true of Arnak as well. They both can be played solo really well.
So we have another little smaller size game called Claim. It is a deck building trick game, right? That's what it's called?
Trick taking, yeah.
Trick taking game that's played in 2 phases. So the first one, you're trying to build your deck, and there's definitely some interesting components when you're, because you're fighting to build your deck. And then the second half of the game is using your deck to win over the different clans to your side. So there's 2 phases that definitely play completely different than each other, but you're trying to balance, which one do I play? And then while you're building your deck, you're also trying to remember what your opponent took, so that if they have.
I wouldn't say that the 2 phases play different, but how you approach them is different, because the first phase, you're playing to win cards for your deck for the second phase. Right. And then in the second phase, you're trying to have the most of each faction, because if you have the most of 3 factions, you win.
So they play differently.
And when it boils down to it, it's just a simple numbers game too. But because of the way the factions work, there's actually a whole lot there with the numbers. Yeah,
it's more like a numbers and colors, or for lack of a better word, faction game, where you are trying to build the specific right deck for you while also trying to counter what your opponent does. There's a lot of mind tricks that you're trying to play.
And this is by Deep Water Games.
There are multiple expansions available for Claim, but we just got the first one to get us started. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, your stack is bigger than mine.
You made the stack. So this is Rift Force by Capstone Games. This is one of the newer releases that they just showed. I don't think it released at Origins, but I know it's
it released recently.
It is a deck building game.
It's not a deck building game.
What is it then?
It's a card game.
But you pick your heroes at the beginning, which determine your deck.
Yes.
In a draft style pick.
Yes, at the start of the game, you get
almost
dealt.
Almost as if you're deck building.
Not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Yeah, but that's the wrong game term.
Okay, well.
But you get dealt a summoner, and you get all the cards with that summoner, and then you take turns drafting other summoners and get those cards, and that forms your deck. And each summoner has a list of abilities on them, and that's how you actually use the cards. Like, the cards themselves don't have text on them other than some numbers. And whenever you activate those cards, your summoners are basically your list of abilities that those cards do. And there's kind of a numbers game at play where you could play 3 different types of elementals at one time, or activate 3 different elementals at one time if they're all the same number, like all the number 5. Or you could play and activate 3 of the same elemental, and the numbers don't matter as long as they're like all ice elementals. And it's a really cool back and forth countering each other, because you're trying to hold on to pieces of land for Rift Force. And in addition to that, whenever you defeat an enemy elemental, you also get Rift Force, and the first person to 12 Rift Force wins.
A little bit of a tongue twister there. So it is a 2-person competitive game. It's definitely replayable, and there's a lot of different combos depending on which summoners you have. So there's like 7 or 8 summoners total.
I believe there's 9 off the top of my head, but I might be wrong on that.
So I think there's 8. There's 8 different summoners.
No, it's something I'll have to look up later, or I'll open it up and look at.
But they all have different combinations that you can work well together.
I actually believe there's 10, because the first one gets removed, and when you draft them, you end up with 4 each, and you remove the last one. Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to happen, because it was just tilting that all over the place.
Well, I meant, that's a thumbnail.
Yeah, that's all mixed up. And this is the part of the video where I fast forward it while we're doing this.
So there's actually not technically a board. You have cards that kind of play out to make a 5-piece set you play off of.
See, her competitiveness, this is what I have to deal with. Because the reason all these cards just got spilled all over the place is because she has to be right on camera.
No, I have to know! Is there 10?
9.
Ah. Unless we're missing one.
Yeah, unless the one's in that pile somewhere.
Yep. There's 10.
Ah, 10.
Okay.
I was right, and it's on camera. Immortalized forever.
We won't bring up all the times that I'm right.
Once we shut the camera off, she's going to ask me to re-record it.
No. It said that the face I made was pretty funny.
Stop there for now.
Let me keep going.
Sure.
Oh my god, I'm yawning.
Are you sure? I thought you had it. This is... I mean, don't look too enthused about the video or anything. Falling asleep over there. This is... Yeah, how about I put it in front?
That's where I had it.
Monster Expedition, and this is published by Amigo Games. And that glare is still really bad.
No, it's not the glare. That's just the way it looks.
And this is a competitive 1 to 4 player dice game where you're trying to capture monsters or cages or you're trying to get cages or capture monsters. You're not trying to capture cages. Using dice. And through the dice, you can kind of upgrade your hunting camp. And then the monsters you capture can also have abilities that can kind of change, give you more dice, or they might be able to help upgrade your camp, I think. We played this a couple times so far. And it's really cool. It's got a lot of luck mitigation where you're trying to use the right dice to capture the monsters, and when you roll them, you kind of have to choose which ones to bank, because you don't want to lock yourself in a situation where you've already banked a lot of the a lot of the dice sides, because if you have to bank another of the same number, it's a misthrow, and you lose your highest dice during that round.
Yeah, so you are rolling dice based on your camp level. The more higher your camp level, the more dice you have to roll. It is more like a Yahtzee style where you're trying to keep as many dice to get the highest number while also not re-rolling the same numbers again. So you can keep multiple numbers of the same facing, so you can keep all the 6s or all the 5s when you roll them at once. Especially the higher number of dice you get, the more complicated it gets. But the larger the number is that you get at the end, the whole point is the higher your number, the more monsters you get to capture. So
yeah, you have to have a certain amount of dice value for different monsters. The more powerful the monster, the higher the dice value, the more points it's worth. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to kind of push your luck on which dice you're going to bank, what you're going to go for to get the better monsters. And the artwork on this is really, really good on the monsters, and it's this is another game that's really quick to set up and play. And it also has a solo mode.
So 1 to 4 players normally, so it could be played by yourself with 2 people or with more. And it's not one of those ones when you play 2 people, you have to play multiple characters. You can't just play 1 person. So this is Galatune by Galatune. It is a competitive like fighting game.
It's a card game.
Card game. You can pick up, how many are there? 14 different characters. It's very interesting because you don't actually die. When you die, you're not out. You're actually fighting to chaos, like it's like a death match.
Yeah, so think Smash Brothers in card form.
Exactly. Pretty much exactly. Because you're dealt a deck of your hand, and then as you play your hand, everyone picks what card they're going to play, and we all play them down simultaneously. In addition to the cards you play, you pick at that time who you're gonna play it on. So if there's 3 of us, I could choose to attack him, and then the other person could choose to attack me or defend Joey, and we don't know what you're gonna do until we all play it down immediately. So there's a lot of back and forth. When it's 2 people, it's more of like a head-on chess match, but when there's multiple people, it gets into table dynamics and seeing who's going to fake out who is everyone going to gang up on. But every time you die, you actually, if you want to, get to pick a different character, which might have different abilities, because every character has different abilities that they can use. But everyone uses the same kind of cards. Other fun fact is when you kill someone, you get to steal some of their cards. Yep. So there's this cross-play of trying to get the best cards in your hand, while when you know someone has a really powerful card, being sure to counter it if you can. So it's very interesting, fast-paced card game. And again, you play to KO, so if you want it to be a longer game, you just play to more KOs.
Yep, you can increase the amount it takes. How many KOs you need, and like she said, it's kind of like a chess match when it's 2 people, but when there's more, you get into kind of what is
table politics?
No, there's an actual word for it, but like negotiating, I guess, because each player plays 1 card a turn, and it's all at the same time, so they decide what they're doing and who they're doing it to, and you throw down the cards on the person you're doing it to at the same time. So I could try to make a deal with you that she's winning, we can attack her, and we throw our cards down, and you lied to me and actually defended her instead, and it's really cool. It's really quick to learn, but there's a lot to it. It's got a Pokemon style strength and weakness system, and that's actually how he caught our attention. We were walking by and we looked down at the table, and he's like, "Hey, if you like Pokemon, I bet you'll like our game." And turns out he was right.
Yeah, it's what's nice about it is, again, since everyone plays all at the same time and it's TKOs, you're never out of turn. You always get to play. Even if you're losing, you have just as much chance to come back. Just because you are a couple KOs down doesn't mean you can't turn it around. There's nothing stopping you from doing it.
And we actually haven't opened this up yet, but we did demo it at Origins. We're going to open this up actually right after the video because our gaming group is coming over tomorrow and we want to play it with them.
I'm very excited, even though I know that I will get personally attacked and gang up on. I still am excited to play it and have a lot of fun.
What she's not telling you in that is she's a really sore winner, which is why she gets teamed up on.
This is a really sore winner, but I'm ruthless, so.
This is the Loop by Pandasaurus Games, and this was one I knew I wanted, and I ended up standing in line at Saturday morning to get into the exhibit hall early, which was completely unnecessary in most cases because you weren't like fighting people to get to booths or anything. But I saw on their Twitter that they only had one copy of the Loop left, and I wanted it, and I got it. And it kind of reminds me of Arkham, but
without story.
Well, no,
components.
Yeah, without the story components and without dice. You're playing cards instead with character abilities. There's 5 different characters, and it's got this really cool kind of loop mechanic where you're going around this board trying to stop the Dr. How do you pronounce it? Dr. Foe?
Yeah.
From messing stuff up. And if you play your cards like in the right way on the right places of the board, you can loop and get them back and keep going. So it's got a really cool combo mechanic as you're trying to use your cards multiple times and set up the right combos.
And it does have deck building elements to it because you're getting artifacts to be able to use cards as more powers. Funny enough, well, we know it has been in production and been in development for quite a while, I can imagine. When it comes to the theme, it is pretty much no spoilers, but the show Loki and this game could be blood brothers.
Yeah.
So
it's got the very close theme.
And I'm sure it wasn't on purpose. It was more kismet, but if you want Loki the game, this is it. Pretty much. This is if they were going to make a game based off that TV show, it'd be this game.
Yeah, the theme is very, very close, and who you're playing and what is actually going on.
What's happening, all that kind of stuff.
But it's a really fun co-op game from what we've played. And this one also has a solo mode.
Which plays different. It has this very interesting centerpiece component that you pour these little gems in.
Yeah, the time machine.
To see where the next event, like this more random thing. It's a very interesting way to have a random component go on. On top of that, it is so satisfying to pour the little gems into the dispenser and just watch them shoot out the bottom. And it's very fun. Can't help doing it.
The little time machine thing fits right back into the box after it's assembled too, which I was happy about.
So I can go.
Okay.
I'll still got a few. It's actually heavy. So this is Shobu by Smirk and Laughter. It is a game of river rocks, a couple boards or 4 boards, and a rope. Yeah. And it is the most mind-melting game you will probably ever encounter, especially one that literally is rocks on a board. It is almost like a 4D chess where you can only move, you have an attacking and a defending board, and on the defending board you can't push off other rocks, but you can't actually move your rocks on the attacking board. You can only move the rock on your defending board and then move it on your attacking board in the same direction. So almost like those magnetic things underneath, like those magnetic maze games that you're playing. You've never seen those?
It's very confusing to try and explain, but it's got very simple components, but it is a very deep game. Very easy to learn. I mean, the rule sheet is like 1 page. And that's by Smirk and Laughter. We were the same stand, same booth we got the Night Cage from. When we were talking to the owner, and it was my first convention as press. So every booth we go to, we're trying to talk to him, and I give him my card and basically tell him what we do with reviewing games, and that we kind of focus on games that can be played at low player count. They don't have to be just 1 or 2 player games. Just they have to work well at them. And when he heard that, he introduced us to Shobu because it's a 2-player game, and I think he called it that it's kind of like 3D chess, and I kind of disagree. I think it's closer to 4D chess.
I think he did say 40, but it is.
He said one of them, and he was right.
As you can see on the back, it's a very simple setup, but as you play, you'll see how intense the game can get, and really counter moving each other.
Watch for because I'll show how it all works when I review all this, because I will review everything here at some point. As soon as this video drops, I'll be dropping reviews after that in the coming weeks and months.
I mean, maybe get this one on there a little sooner because it's simpler, but it's really fun, and definitely a brain melter.
Yes.
He was joking the other day that when we first played it together, he thought he had me down to 1 rock on my defensive board, but with that 1 rock, I almost was able to come back, and I had him locked in a certain place where he could not physically move on his defending board because of how I had set it up.
Because the way it works is each player has a board on each side, or 2 boards on each side of this rope, and when to move the rocks on the other board, you have to move the rocks on the bottom.
Actually, on the corner board.
Yes, the opposite one. So if you moved this rock 1 space up, you could move one of the rocks on this side 1 space up, and it can be any of them. And the top boards, can push off the other player's rocks, and that's how you win. But you can't do that on your prep boards. But they can knock off the rocks on your prep boards. That's how they win. So it's very forward thinking on how you're going to maneuver your rocks around, because you can't protect your prep rocks, but your prep rocks are what is used to move the other rocks that can win you the game.
And there are certain ways you can lock your opponent, and there was a couple times where he literally could not move his rocks because he had got himself into a unique position where he couldn't move left anymore.
The explanation will be much better in the review when I've prepped for it and possibly a script and not on the fly.
But it's a very fun game, and we're excited to continue
past my bedtime.
Your turn next. I only got a couple left.
We're shooting this haul kind of late because I learned 2 hours ago that our gaming group is actually going to play tomorrow. So I thought I had tomorrow to do all this, and it turns out I don't. So.
And we're go to bed early. We're old. Carol, I'll throw it closer to the camera.
It was visible. So that is On the Rocks by 25th Century Game. Actually, I think it's team effort. It's both 25th Century and Pentry. Yep. And I'm gonna pull one component out of this to talk about it, but it is a competitive bartending game where you're trying to get the most tips and points by mixing drinks, and I'm trying not to dump this everywhere because I'm not sure how it's in here.
It is 1 to 4 players, right? Or 2? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1 to 4.
It's 1 to 4 players,
and
so you can play
you
solo.
make the drinks by using marbles, like rocks on the rocks. Aw. Yeah, see, that's what I was afraid of. That's why I was being very careful, because I knew the component I wanted wasn't going to be up top. But you're drafting marbles out of these rubber bowls to make your different drinks. And there is kind of a take that element to it, because you can give your opponent spill cards by kind of tricking them or making it so that they have to take a bad marble. And your tips also have abilities on them that you can use to change things in the game. And the player boards are actually these cool little like menus that open up into the player board, and you're not going to be able to see it on the camera there. I'll see if I can edit something in. But there are little divots into the board where you place the marbles on each of the 4 different types of drinks. And it is really cool. Like, it's really fun playing it, grabbing the marbles, mixing the bowls, and putting them into different places.
Mm-hmm. So you draw random drink cards. So not every hurricane glass has the same drink in it. It's always a different combination of marbles. The more marbles your drink might take, the more money it's worth. So there's that kind of component on, do you want to do 3 drinks so you're done quicker, or 4 drinks so you get more money? Because you can actually outpace your opponents. So if you're able to, the first person to 3 drink order sections, rounds, it'll be last call. And that means everyone else only has one more turn to finish what they were trying to do.
Because you can be on an entirely different round than the other players if you're moving quick enough. And yeah, if you make it through last call, then you get a bonus. And if they don't catch up with their drinks fast enough, they'll get penalties for having unfinished drinks.
But at the same time, it might be worth it if they've been doing more expensive drinks, or you might have the most drinks, but like I said, they might have higher tips because the tips are random as well. So it's definitely some randomness to it, but a lot of strategy.
And this also has a solo mode.
Mm-hmm. Next, we have, continuing with the drinking theme, we have Drinks and Daggers, and then the expansion Drinks, Daggers and Allies. So you have both of them. Expansion, big game. This is a kind of cooperative card game where you're battling a boss. There are how many different player characters? 8 different player decks, 3 different boss decks, and then a Banana Foster, which adds some more interesting components to it.
It is actually a cooperative game, but you don't have to play it. You can play it as a drinking game. There's a lot of cards that are take a drink or give somebody a drink or take a drink. But if you play it sober, if you drinks aren't required, there is kind of an optional variant in there where you're given anytime a character would have to take a drink, you get a drink token. And then, so you're still working together to beat a boss, but whoever has the least amount of those drink tokens by the end of the game wins. So there's a semi-competitive component while you're trying to beat the boss. And it's a very easy game to learn. Like, it's a card game where you play, I think, 1 card a turn.
It depends on the character.
Yeah, like you had one that you could, last time we played, you were playing one that let you combo cards. But, like, you play a card, 1 card a turn. And then at the start of your turn, you draw a boss card to see what the boss does to you and your team. And it's very comical with the card art, the jokes, and all that. And Banana Foster, I don't recommend this, given the ongoing pandemic.
Yeah.
But the Banana Foster deck is this kind of optional thing that adds crazy stuff, like, for the next turn, if you draw the right card, you can't touch the cards with your hands,
so...
which is definitely not sanitary at the moment. And there's another where if you were actually drinking, everybody pours theirs into yours, and also, again, not sanitary. But, at some point in the future, or if you.
If the alcohol proof is high enough,
Yeah, and it can.
it might be okay. But it's
I mean,
not necessarily something you want to play with.
back when I was much younger and wouldn't die, I have had. Well, I have had stuff that was basically the equivalent of rocket fuel, and I wouldn't worry about any germs being in that.
Yep. So this is Drinks and Daggers, a competitive card game where there's 8 different playable characters who are all completely different. They play completely different. And there are 3 different boss monsters to fight. They all play differently. They all have unique decks with different special rules. There is drinking if you want to, or be sober if you are more lame like we are. Either way, it's a definitely fun game to play with your friends.
And it plays 1 to 6. Well, 2 to 6 officially. You can play solo if you play 2 characters, which it's not hard to do that. It's a good party game that you could break out. That's a little bit more to it than your standard party game, but it's easy enough that non-gamers could probably play it pretty easy. And the expansion actually comes with 4 more heroes and a new boss called Finnegan.
It is all based off of a podcast, Greetings Adventures, the podcast. So if you are fans of the podcast, you'll probably recognize it a little bit more than we do. But overall, the artwork is gorgeous, and there is a lot of funny components if you just like fantasy games.
Yeah,
the most part.
The art is really good, and they actually, it was one of the things I mentioned to them, like when they handed me their business card. The business card has like the coolest art of any business card I've ever seen. Like, it puts mine to shame.
Excuse you.
I didn't mean it like that. She did all the graphic work for my stuff. So.
As he stated earlier, do all the graphics. So.
That's the one, yeah. Give it a second, let it focus. I don't know if it'll see it. Yeah, it's very, very cool looking. And all the art is similar to that.
So, we only have technically 3 more games, but one's another expansion.
And this is a little small box game by the Grand Gamers Guild called Pocket Ops. And it's basically tic-tac-toe with special powers. And it's really cool because when you're placing something, you have this hand of cards that all correspond to the places on the board. And the board is exactly like normal tic-tac-toe. There's only 9 spots. And when you pick where you're placing it, you pick a card and you put it face down, and the other player tries to guess what you're doing and places their own card down. If they guess correctly, it cancels out your move. But beyond that, there's the spies are just like normal tic-tac-toe, but you have special agents that change the way the game works. Like, one might destroy another person's token on that spot, or it might swap places with another person's token, and it's really simple, but it's so small. It's literally Pocket Ops. You could literally take it in your pocket. And we were at a friend of mine's wedding a while back, and if you've seen my other Origins video, you know I get overstimulated in crowds really easy. I would have loved to have had this then, because we were sitting in the reception while they were taking pictures, and I could have pulled this out and played with her and kind of distracted myself in the meantime.
I like to refer to it as tic-tac-toe meets Battleship with a little bit, a couple powers.
That's a good explanation.
Because the way you play it, the back and forth of it is more like Battleship, trying to guess exactly where they're going to place their tic-tac-toe person or spy. It's definitely that more Battleship component, but it is tic-tac-toe. So it's a nice, interesting mesh between the 2 games with some special powers in between. So it's a fun little game, easy to set up, easy to play, pocket size. So the last couple games we have here are Fire Tower and Fire Tower Deluxe Edition Expansion Rising Flames. So this is a competitive board game, 2 to 4 players, where you are placing fire down and trying to make sure the fire stays away from your tower while it engulfs your opponent's tower. There's cards that you can play that either change the wind direction, or they will actually cause fire to spark, or water, or fire stoppers.
Fire breaks.
Fire breaks. So like fire can't get past certain places. You take turns going around the board, placing fire automatically, whatever way the wind is blowing, and then using your powers from your cards as you draw them. Things I like about this game is it's a very interesting way of showing the fire. It's these really cool. Hopefully this one doesn't spill out.
I think those ones. I don't think we have them bagged, so you should be safe.
Yeah. So the fire in this game is these cool little plastic pieces that actually look very much like real fire as much as you can from a static piece.
It's abstract, but they're simple pieces so that the game isn't super expensive, but they still look nice, especially as you're playing and there gets to be more and more fire on the board.
Yeah.
Because
it really looks like the fire's growing.
Yeah.
The more and more
the longer the game goes on, the more fire there is. And it's really cool. It's a nice head-to-head. There's a lot of back and forth of countering what the other person's doing and
changing the wind to be in your favor. The expansion adds cool little buckets, a single player and a 5-person modes for the game, because the base game is only 2 to 4, so the expansion makes it 1 to 5, which is really nice.
We haven't actually played with the expansion yet. We have played the base game since we've gotten home, but yeah, this adds a lot more depth to the game if that's what you're looking for. This is actually the Super Deluxe Edition, so there's a bunch of mini expansions in it. And like she said, yeah, that's 2 to 4, and this actually takes it 1 to 5, so you can actually play solo, which is super cool. And this is we also met one of the designers of this game, and he's really nice. And this is by Runaway Parade Games.
Mm-hmm. So these are the two games they have. It's very interesting, the back and forth of putting the pressure on while still defending yourself, and that whole tug of war with the fire component. And if you let it get out of hand, it's hard to stop, just kind of like a real fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's even multiple different ways to play 2 players. So you can play with just 1 tower each, or you can play with 2 towers each on opposite corners. So this is definitely something good to pick up if you have a lower player count. Not that it's bad at higher player counts, but
yeah, I haven't tried the solo mode yet, but I'm really excited to. I'm looking forward to reviewing this one and trying all the stuff that's in the expansion.
Mm-hmm. And the base game's pretty fun.
So I got a couple bonus games, and they're bonus games because they're not from Origins, but I'm reviewing them, so I'm going to show them off anyway.
We got them actually delivered to our house, one of them while we were at Origins, and we had to have someone come and pick it up and put it in the house for us.
One of them came before, and then one came right after. The one that came before
came during
while we were up there is Dice Miner by Atlas Games. And this is probably one of the fastest games to set up and tear down that isn't a small box game, because all it is a couple little cardboard cards for the different classes. It is a bag of dice, sheets of paper, and this cardboard mountain that the dice go on. And the cardboard mountain is super cool because looking at it, you don't think it would work the way it's supposed to, but you literally just pour the bag at the top of it and they all slide into place like they're supposed to, as long as you don't overdo it like I do all the time. And it's a dice drafting game where you're trying to, I like to call it Misty Mountain Yahtzee, because it's dwarves mining 3 different mountains, and you're trying to get different a straight suit from 1 to 5 for regular dice, but there's also gems and there's hazards, and you can turn those hazards that would normally be negative points into positive points by having the right tool dice, and you're back and forth trying to draft the ones you want while trying not to let your opponent get the ones they need. And there's also a solo mode in that kind of works. It works a lot different than the how it's normally played, and it becomes like a Tetris puzzle of trying to not lock yourself out of moves while you build up a high score.
So at first I wasn't in love with this game, but then we found out it's because Joey can't count. And I thought, well, there's no really strategy. Like, I'm trying my hardest. I feel like I should be winning here. And then I come to find out he was, like, double adding the first round into his thing. So I should have been winning more.
I can't math.
I am the smartest man alive!
We know this.
So I made him get a calculator out and actually do the math in it. And then I found out, I was like, oh, okay, so the strategy I was having was working. There's like, how many different characters in this one?
I believe 6.
6? Yeah, 6 different characters you can play, and they each have their own small power that kind of differentiates them. There's magic dice that let you re-roll, so that's the strategy. Do you take the magic dice, or do you focus on other things? It's definitely an interesting battle Yahtzee kind of game.
It's very, very quick to set up and
Yes.
take down, which you usually only find in small box games.
I think it says the games last 20 to 30 minutes, and that's if you're going pretty slow. I think between the two of
Oh
us,
yeah, matches
we would
are
easily
really
get
quick.
through 15 minutes a max, but we were still having fun the whole time. It wasn't
Yeah,
a
it's
hard
very
cleanup
quick.
or tear down.
Yeah, most of the time, you want to take the stated play time on a box and multiply it probably by like twice as much. But this one, no, it's fast.
I mean, we haven't played it with 4 people yet, but with 2 people, it definitely doesn't take that long. You pretty much know where you want to go. On the other hand, that lawyer game, Lawyer Up or Law Up, it might be like 3 times as long.
And this is Red Rising by Stone Meyer Games. And this one is really cool. I don't think I've played anything like it before, because it's a hand management game where you're trying to... It's another game where it's about victory points, and there's a bunch of different ways to get victory points, but the main concept of it is you've got a hand of cards, and all those cards do different things, and then there's a board full of cards, and you're trying to get a combo of different types of cards into your hand for the end game. So you have to balance between playing the limited cards in your hand to get different cards and figuring out which cards you want to keep for the end game and which ones you are willing to play to get different cards in the meantime.
So there's like 7, I think, different colors of cards.
Oh no, there's more than that.
8. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, that's not even all of them.
No, I believe there's
like-
14 casts.
Yeah, so there's 14 different colors of cards,
Mhm.
and each one of them has different kind of themes to them. Every single card in the deck is different.
Is unique,
There are
yes.
no reprints or multiples of any cards. Every single one is different. It is probably one of the most complicated games you can have with the easiest setup. Like, setup is extremely easy. You just shuffle a big deck.
And it's really not hard to learn either,
No.
because you have 2 potential actions you can do on your turn, and they're to do with playing your cards, so it's really easy to learn. The rulebook's not that big, but there is a ton of strategy and ways to win and
The
things you
different
can
kind
do.
of combos, and what you might think your initial plan is when you start and when you get your starting hand is going to probably change like 3 or 4 times before you get to the end, because based on the cards that are drawn and pulled and played, there's so much strategy to getting the best combo, and it's a constant strategy game.
And it's a balance, because there are the way the game ends is if there's a certain amount of things on the board are fulfilled by any combination of players. So you have the balance between continually working toward a higher scoring combo or taking the one you have and trying to end the game before your opponent can get the one that they're working toward.
Yeah, so it's that, do I quit? Now, there's been multiple times where I can finish the game, but if I do, this is it. I could get like, do I go for that little bit better combo, or do I end it now while I'm still good, because I could actually hurt myself by taking another turn. So there's that. In addition, this is actually based on a book series, the Red Rising series. If you've read it, you'll recognize all the characters and the themes in it. They all kind of make sense based on the book. But if you don't know what that book is, you can definitely still enjoy this game.
Yeah, I haven't read the books prior to getting the game. I'm kind of interested in them now, and it didn't impact my enjoyment. I'm sure, if you've read the books, and you're definitely even going to be even more into it. But because all there is sort of like standard characters, like a gardener, but then there's named characters that are from the books on all the cards, and I believe there's 112 character cards, and they're all unique. There's no reprint or doubles of each one. Some of them might have some similar powers, but even they kind of work differently on the conditions for how you use them.
We've only played this with 2 players, and I'm very excited to play it with a higher player count.
Which we'll probably do tomorrow.
Yeah, which we're going to do tomorrow, because there's, a certain strategy with 2 people, but we have never gotten through even halfway through the deck of 112 cards. So there's a lot left in the deck and a lot of combos, because certain cards actually combo with specific other cards. So there's a lot of that we can't even begin to start playing with, because there's only 2 of us playing and only so many cards get on the field. So the more people, the more likely you are to actually get those cards in play.
Maybe, but maybe not, because more cards are going to be getting scooped up too.
Exactly. So I'm very excited to see how it plays with a higher player count.
And there is a solo mode in this called, if I remember right, I'd have to pull out the book, but I think it's called Toma. It's meant to be like an actual name and played off Automa or Automata or Automaton, and the rulebook explains what that is. But I haven't played the solo mode yet as of the time that we're recording this, but I read through the solo rulebook, and it actually looks really cool. I think it'll work really well.
So it is 1 to 5?
No, this is 1 to 6.
Oh, so it's a 1 to 6 player game. Our 2-player games do last about 40 to 45 minutes, depending on how long we are taking deliberating each turn. I'm guessing longer, or higher player counts will take longer.
Yeah, so that is all the games we got from Origins, and I will be reviewing all of them.
All 18 of them.
Was it 18? And that's not including Dice Miner and Red Rising.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Yeah, because I'll be doing all of that, including the books and the battle map, which I'll be doing a little bit different. I don't know that I'll make a video on them, but there'll be a written something on them, if nothing else. Favorite part of Origins?
I think demoing the Wild West game. What was that one called?
Gunfights and
Gambling, and making our opponents actually have to go physically elsewhere to huddle for 10 minutes because it was down to the last round, and we were gonna win, and we did win.
I mentioned that game in my Origins Gideon Goes to Origins video. And that is by Mid-Level Meeple. It's one of the games we demoed, Gunfights and Gambling, which is like this Wild West themed game where we played it teams of 3, the Pioneers versus the Renegades, and the game was so close to the end that in the final round, our opponents got up, left the table to huddle to try and come up with a plan.
A game plan to counter kind of me.
You know what? Speaking of Mid-Level Meeple, there is one more coming from Origins. It's just not here yet because of the shipping issues, and that is Fortune and Famine by Mid-Level Meeple.
Yeah, we actually bought that. I forgot that we bought that game, and we're just waiting on it to ship. So we bought it at the show to get the show price,
and that'll be reviewed once it gets here.
Yeah, so technically there's even one more game. We did demo that one as well, and I did have fun stealing grain from an actual child, as I had said before.
There's no context to what you just said, and I don't know that I'm going to add any.
I am quite ruthless when it comes to games, if it's competitive.
We gave them tickets later.
We did, but
So
I'd still won.
fair. We gave them tickets, so just to make up for your brutality.
The game is part of the game. He stole from me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, you're saying, but he's a child. You're not going to win that argument.
You stole from me too.
Okay, well,
So it's
I
part of
can
the
steal
game.
from you.
It's part of the game, and I won. So that's what matters.
6 people at the table, and you steal from a child.
I stole from multiple people. Thank you. I stole from everyone.
Not sure.
I did get the highest score. Like
She did. It
Officially,
actually,
highest
kind
that
of,
they've
kind
run.
of, yeah, kind of shocked one of the designers that we ran out of grain tokens because her score was so high, and it sucks because the whole time, because you, without going completely into how the game plays entirely. Whoever has the most grain at the end of the game wins, and you hide how much grain you have stored behind a screen. So the whole time I'm like counting mine up. I'm like, I got this by a long shot. Ain't nobody even gonna be close. And I had 31, and she had 55.
Yeah, it was funny. Like two rounds from the end of the game.
To be fair, I didn't steal from children, so
Actually, I think you did.
I didn't steal from.
I think you did. I think
Okay.
you stole money from him.
Oh yeah, I might have stole silver.
I think you stole his money. So like, don't be throwing stones. I just think it's funny the way you say it. But I know it was like 2 rounds from the end of the game, and I was like, "Do we have more grain tokens?" And he's like, "Oh, we did them." The guy showing us how demoing the game for us and actually playing alongside of us was like, "Oh, we've done the math. You can't run out of grain tokens. It's very highly improbable." And yeah, we did run out of grain tokens like pretty quickly. And while everyone else got pretty good
I'll put
scores.
links to everything in the description of these different games, but yeah, that's Fortune and Famine, also by Mid-Level Meeple, and that one's a lot of fun.
What's your favorite?
I don't know. I think my favorite thing is just how friendly everyone was.
I think another fun moment for me
We
was
went.
playing Gloomhaven, demoing Gloomhaven.
Frosthaven.
Frosthaven was a lot of fun.
It was.
Getting to see some of the changes that they've made to that. We did have that funny moment where I almost broke a stone dice. Jinxed it.
Yeah, we were walking by the Wyrmwood booth,
Which is gorgeous.
and she was talking about how she always breaks dice.
I love they have rose quartz like stone dice that are worth their weight, but
And she's talking about how she breaks dice and metal dice, and I just want to note that when she says break dice, she means breaks it so that it rolls ones, not actually. She didn't break a metal dice.
not physically, but spiritually.
But we were walking by Wyrmwood, and somebody at the stand overheard it and is like, "No," and hands her one of their stone dice, and she rolls it, and it's immediately on a 1.
Yep, I have the Will Wheaton effect, so it's just what it is. And the poor guy, he's like, "Oh, okay," and then he's like, "Well, it's just bad juju." So he scooped the dice up and like positive vibes, warmed it up for me. I then promptly rolled a 6. He took his dice back, and I walked away before I heard anything
Yeah,
else.
he took the dice back, and we
I was
laughed.
like,
It's like,
that's
"Oh, okay."
okay, you're not wrong. And this is like, I love those dice, but I can't afford to spend that much on dice that I'm gonna break. Because I will. Because I've already broke a metal set.
$100 on a beautiful D20, only for it to go to dice jail almost immediately.
There's a reason that I like to play charismatic characters, so I don't have to roll them.
I don't know what it is, because you don't roll bad in board games, but when it comes to Pathfinder
It depends.
or D&D,
Okay, in that Dice Miner game, I rolled statistically improbable to roll that the 1 in 6.
Yeah, but then what does that say
5
about
times
me?
in a row?
because you still win.
Because I'm good at games. Strategy is my life.
I think my favorite thing is just how friendly everyone was. My first time at a convention as press, I had to talk to a lot of new people. We were all over the place because we could only be there 2 days this year. We were there Friday and Saturday. Next year we're going to try to go for all of them. And Saturday, we hit so many booths.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is just super friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was my favorite part.
Everything was super nice. They definitely were. It was always fun to let them tell us about their game and hear the whole spiel from them. Everyone was very passionate about that game. And even just playing with random people, because I did get to play a few rounds with a few games.
You played Bargain Quest while I was off doing things.
Yeah, I actually played with a number of people, and it was a lot of fun just to meet new people and play board games against them or with them. And just see how different people play and interact with games, I think is interesting. I'm very, very excited to go back again. I wish we could go to PAX Unplugged. Unfortunately, that's not this year for us, I don't think. It's a little bit too close / too far away at the same time. Too close in the year, but also too far away from where we are at, unfortunately. But I'm very excited, and I'm excited that Origins is actually going to be in June and not October, so it comes even sooner.
It will be at June. So, it will be in June next year, which is nice.
So we don't have to wait as long to go again.
This is a long video, so I'll definitely have timestamps. So we better end it.
Okay. Well, to be fair, there's like 30 minutes at the beginning that's cut off, so.
Yeah, when I'm still messing with the camera and the light and everything.
Yep, and dropping things. Always fun.
All right. Well, in any case,
Thank you all for watching.
Nope, I messed it up.
What you gotta do?
If you enjoyed this video, liking and subscribing is immensely helpful. And I've also left a few links down in the description below. One on my website where you can find the bulk of my written content, and a link to my Kofi page if you feel like tossing in a donation. But in any case, thanks for watching, and until next time.